And the other thing about this is what's known as istidraj. And istidraj is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will allow you to continue on in disobedience and increase you in blessings. And you think that it's because Allah likes you. And that's what the man says in the Quran when he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the man who he's given blessings and things, he says, Rabbi akramani, my Lord, he's given me ikram. And then فَإِذَا قَدَرْ رِزْقَهُ قَالَ إِنَّ رَبِّي أَهَانَنِي فَيَقُولُ رَبِّي أَهَانَنِي. When Allah makes it constricted for him and difficult, he says, my Lord's ahanani. He's insulted me, he's denigrated me. So people see that if it's difficult, they think that that's a sign that Allah hates them. If it's easy, they think Allah loves them. Now this is an important point, because there's a few things happening. In terms of ni'mah, first, what is a ni'mah? In other words, how do we identify a ni'mah? If you look, there are things that will benefit you they'll benefit you short-term and long-term. An example of that would be like ilm and husn al-khuluq, good character. So things that benefit you in short-term and long-term, that is a true ni'mah. That is a true ni'mah. Something that will benefit you in your dunya and your akhirah. That is pure, unadulterated ni'mah. And then you have something that is nafi'un. You have something that's darrun fil hal wal ma'al. It harms you in the short term and the long term, like ignorance and bad character. Su'al khuluq. And then you have something that is beneficial short term, but in the long term it's not good for it. And there's a lot of things like that. Shahwats are generally like that. If you eat a whole bunch, you're enjoying it while you're eating, but then overeating is bad for you. It's just bad for you, simple as that. So it's beneficial short term, long term it's harmful. And then there's other things, the opposite of that. They're harmful in the short term, beneficial in the long term, like suppressing the shahwat. So stopping before you're full. That's difficult. So yadurruka fil hal. It's something you don't really like in the short term, but in the long term it's good for you. And ignorant people see this as a ni'mah. Ignorant people see the short-term benefit that has long-term harm. They see it as a ni'mah, and they like it. And that's why they're not very intelligent. Because intelligent people, the difference between intelligent people and ignorant people is intelligent people look at the aqibah. They always look at the long term. Children can't look at long term. And that was why one of those tests that they did on the EQ test, which I thought was really interesting, is the man who did all the studies on children that were successful later on in life. I mean, they have different criteria for success than we do. But the point of the test is that they would take a child and say, I'll give you, they'd leave cookies out, and they'd come in, oh, can I have a cookie? And they'd say, I'll tell you what, you can either have one now, or you can have two later. And consistently, the more intelligent ones would pick the two later. In other words, they were willing to put off the short-term gain for a long-term greater gain. And that is intelligent. That is a sign of intelligence in Islam. Al-aqibatu lil-muttaqeen. The kuffar look short-term, fourth quarter, right? The Muslims look long-term, right? Now, there's dunya, like for instance, one of the things about the Jews is that the Jews are good at that, right? They're good at thinking long-term benefit. And this is one of the problems with the Muslims now. Muslims are very short-sighted, which is a sign of our own stupidity. We've lost the intelligence we had because we left guidance. And our intelligence is based on our guidance. It's not based, because Allah won't give us tawfiq with other than Islam. Sayyidina Umar said, أعزنا الله نحن قوم أعزنا الله بالإسلام فإذا طلبنا العزة في غيره أذلنا الله. We're a people, Allah gave us dignity with Islam. And if we seek dignity from other than Islam, Allah will humiliate us. You see, so it doesn't work for us. The rules are different for the Muslims and the kuffar. They're different. I mean, there are sunnah that are thabit for everybody. But Allah will not give Muslims tawfiq except with Islam. It's impossible. Whereas with the kuffar, He'll give them temporary successes with their kufr, with their disobedience. Right? But the long term, they're going to fail. The long term, they'll always fail. They have to. So, now, another thing that he mentioned, Imam al-Ghazali, anyway, did I finish with this? Yeah, so another thing about this is there are two types of ni'am. There are what are called usul al-ni'am and furu' al-ni'am. Usul al-ni'am are the roots of the ni'am, which are the most important ones. And then there's furu' al-ni'am. There's branches. The usul of ni'am are things like health, iman, Islam, safety in your body and your where you live and in your well-being and those things. Those are the most important ones. And then there's other ones that are embellish it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about Talut in the Quran, when the Bani Israel, they say, how can he be a king? He doesn't have any money, and this and that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ اصْطَفَاهُ وَزَادَهُ بَسْطَةً فِي الْعِلْمِ وَالْجِسْمِ. Allah chose him, but not only that, He gave him basta. He gave him increase in knowledge and in his body. So this is something that Allah embellishes people with. And that's why Sayyidina Umar said, إِذَا بَعَثْتُمْ رَسُولًا فَبَعَثُوا حَسَنَ الْوَجْهِ. If you send a messenger, send somebody with a good face. Right? Because that you want somebody to present, in this culture they call it personable person. Somebody you see them and there's an automatic attraction to that person. The reason for that is there's a wisdom in it, that Allah has inclined the hearts towards those people. And so that's why the messengers were all attractive to look at. Leadership, one of the qualities that leadership has is height, right? To be actually tall. That's something that many leaders have in history. Napoleon is a serious exception to that rule. But generally, people tend to follow, with kids, the tall one will often be the leader of the gang and things like that. It'll either be the tall one or the clever one, right? One of the two. Like Napoleon was clever, but he wasn't tall. And he was, in the end, a very stupid person. But he was militarily at points. So, I could go on and on about this one because it's a really important one. And I think everybody gets the idea. One man once said to the Prophet, in front of the Prophet, he asked for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allahumma inni asaluka tamam al-ni'mah. Oh Allah, I ask you for the completion of ni'mah. And the Prophet said, Atadri ma huwa tamamu ni'mah? Do you know what tamamu ni'mah is? And he said, La. He didn't know what it was. The Prophet ﷺ said, Dukhul al-Jannah, to enter into paradise. That's completion of ni'mah. So if you had a good life in this world, it's a ni'mah from Allah. And if you had iman, that's the greatest ni'mah in the dunya. But the completion of that ni'mah is to enter into paradise with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَادْخُلِي فِي عِبَادِي وَادْخُلِي جَنَّتِي. Enter amongst my servants, into my paradise. That is the ni'mah. And then Islam is the ni'mah of Allah that He gave us. Right? وَأَتْمَمْتُمْ عَلَيْكُمْ نِعْمَتِي. I have completed my ni'mah of Islam, alaykum. Right? So in this world, Islam is the ni'mah that Allah has given us. And then another thing that Sheikh Muhammad al-Hajjar, who I met in Medina, I was walking out with him to to his car, and he said, right next to the Bab al-Salam, he said, من أصبح معافا في بدنه آمنا في سربه عنده قوت يومه فكأنما حيزت له الدنيا بحذافيرها. Whoever wakes up in a healthy state, mu'afa, right? He's in a good state in his body, and he's safe in his possession, in his what he has, and he has enough to get through the day. It's as if he has the world and everything in it. Right? That's a hadith from Tirmidhi. So if you really reflect on that, if you woke up this morning with afiyah, with good health, and you're protected, you're not feeling anything, and you have enough just to get through this day, it's as if you have everything in the dunya. And so that's a ni'mah that all of us should be grateful for. So, branches would be things like ornamented ni'am, blessings that, for instance, a house, you need a place to live. But if you have extra things in the house and furniture and all those are like furu' and ni'mah. I mean, they're accessory ni'mahs. You don't really need them, they're more. And the more ni'mah you have, the more hisab you have. And that's why when the Prophet once went to a house and they had meat and dates and cool water, and Allah said, ثُمَّ لَا تُسْأَلُونَ يَوْمَئِذٍ عَنِ النَّعِيمِ, and then you will be asked about the na'im, the blessing. And the Prophet said, هَذَا هُوَ النَّعِيمِ. This is the na'im we're going to be asked about. So some of the Sahaba came to the Prophet and they said, Ya Rasulullah, we realize we don't have any blessings to be asked about. Because they weren't eating meat and dates. So Jibreel alayhi salam told the Prophet that Allah wants to know, do they wear sandals and do they drink cold water? And the reason behind that is that you can walk without shoes. So that is a ni'mah to have shoes on your feet. And you can drink water that's not cold. So if you drink cool water, the coolness in it is a ni'mah that you'll be asked about. And you can just continue on from there, right? Mm-hmm.
Could that be interpreted as a recommendation to go with the bare minimum?
To do, Sayyidina Ali, he said, the a'qalu nas az-zuhad. The most intelligent people are people that do without in this world. And he said, وَأَحْمَقُ النَّاسِ الْبَخِيلِ. And the most stupid of people is the bakhil. He said because his malahu, he said حُرِمَ مِنْهُ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَعُقِبَ عَلَيْهِ فِي الْآخِرَةِ. He doesn't get to use it in this life, and then he's punished for it in the next world. So he's an idiot. Like the miser who won't spend even on himself, he just hoards the money. That is the stupidest person. Because he's not enjoying it in this world, and it becomes a punishment for him in the next world. But the point is the zuhad, the zahid, and that's a maqam. He goes into that maqam. Maqam al-zuhud, doing without. Now, the Prophet ﷺ was somebody who was balanced in that, in relation to our time now, he would have been considered living, way below poverty level. In terms of the way the modern world looks at it, his actual, what he was living with, would be so little. It's unbelievable. But by no means was he impoverished, in the sense that his needs were taken care of. Right? So, and he didn't worry about anything, and there was some difficulty with food, but Aisha radiallahu anha said that there was always dates and yogurt and milk, and people would send barley bread. Sometimes 2 months would go by, they didn't see smoke, and they asked her what they were eating, and she said, we used to eat al-aswadain, dates and water. So, Good point. I'm glad you said that. Murabt al-Hajj, when I asked him, can you be a zahid and have a lot of wealth? And he said, كان عثمان أزهد الناس وكان عبد الرحمن بن عوف زاهدا. Like Abd al-Rahman ibn Auf was a zahid, and they were very wealthy. So here it has to do with the heart. If the heart's not connected to it, in other words, if you have all this wealth and you could lose it tomorrow and you would be the same person, then that's a sign you're zahid. But if you fall apart and go into despondency and people can see that that person's a broken person, they'll say he used to be rich and poor guy, he lost everything and now that's what happened. That means, that his whole thing was all in the heart. Whereas the zahid is the one, if it's there with him, khalas, he has it, and if he loses it all, alhamdulillah. And that's why the Prophet said he chose to be hungry one day and full the next day, to keep him in that state where he would never get used to one or the other. Right? Because it's all about attachment. It's not being attached to all this stuff. Right? The next disease is al-haz'u. And this is derision, deriding people, making fun of people. In the Quran, when Musa alayhi salam tells the Bani Israel to sacrifice the cow, they say, "Atastahzi'u bina? Are you making fun of us? Is this huzu?" And he said, "A'udhu billahi an akum min al-jahilin. I seek refuge that I should be from the ignorant ones." From that, the ulama took it that istihza is from jahl. It's ignorant to have istihza towards people, to make fun of people. That's a type of ignorance. And this can be lampooning, right? Making caricatures of people, drawing funny things. In this culture, you have comedians that make fun of people and anybody they take as their target. What he says about this, first of all, that its cure is the same cure for arrogance, because it's a type of arrogance. If you see them as less than you, then it's kibr, then you're arrogant. And this is why the Moroccans say this, but it's actually from Sayyidina Ali. They say, لا تحقروا عبدا عسى أن يكون لله وليا. Don't belittle anybody because he might be a wali of Allah. And the reason for that is, even if you see a man drunk, vomiting on the street, you don't know what his seal is. Right? And that's why Imam al-Qurtubi said, Umar, when he was bowing down to idols in Mecca, was still the beloved with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because al-umur bi khawatimiha, Allah knows what the seal is. So that Umar who was bowing down to idols, that the Muslims could have looked at and made fun of, and what a stupid idiot and a polytheist, etc., etc. They didn't know Umar. Right? They were just seeing one stage, and that's why it's very dangerous to judge somebody where they are, or make fun of them, or things like that. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا يَسْخَرْ قَوْمٌ مِّنْ قَوْمٍ عَسَىٰ أَنْ يَكُونُوا خَيْرًا مِّنْهُمْ. Don't let one people mock another people, because maybe they're better than them. وَلَا يَسْخَرْنَ النِّسَاء وَلَا تَسْخَرْ نِسَاءٌ مِّن نِّسَاءٍ عَسَىٰ أَنْ يَكُنَّ خَيْرًا مِّنْهُنَّ. And don't let a group of women mock another group of women, because maybe they're better than them. Mm-hmm.
There is a hadith where the Prophet said that somebody was making mockery of the idols and the idolaters, and he said that he did not say anything, and said even Jibreel laughed at them.
Allahu A'lam. I don't know. It might be. But what I know is that the Prophet was commanded not to curse their gods. لا تسبوا الذين يدعون من دون الله فيسبوا الله عدوا بغير علم. Don't curse those who call on other than Allah, meaning the idols, because they will curse Allah out of ignorance. And that's called sadd al-dhari'ah. So things like burning the Israeli flag publicly. Muslims do stuff like that, or burning the American flag. What you're going to do is have them go and take Qurans or something and burn them or stomp on them. Or you're going to have them go and take a Saudi Arabian flag that has La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah on it and stomp on it and burn it. So you incite them to do something that is not only bad for them, but it's also it's sacrilegious to us, right? We don't want people cursing Allah, so you shouldn't do that. There's no reason to do it, and that's why the Prophet ﷺ in his victories he was never boastful. When he went into Mecca, he went with his head bowed down. He didn't go in triumphant leader. He went with his head bowed down, total humility, and that's the warrior. I mean, that's the great, not that other one. So, because that's Jahiliyyah. I mean, that's Abu Jahl. No, that's what those people do. And we're supposed to be above that. We're supposed to be in a real way, not in a false way, in a deep way. Mm-hmm.
Regarding the fact that we don't know the seal of a person, how they'll end up, where their maqam might change. So we don't deride them, but what about praying against them?
No, you can pray against your enemies. It's mustahab to make dua for people, for guidance. That's mustahab. It's not a wajib. It's mustahab to make dua for people. Some of the ulama said don't curse Israel because it was the name of a prophet. Right? The name of a prophet. So, but I mean the point is that, and then also, a lot of Jews become Muslims. They have throughout history and they still do. Right? And there are Jews that become Muslims. There's been Israelis that have become Muslims. So they're human beings. I mean, they're not demons. They're human beings. Right? The Serbs are human beings. I mean, there's been some good articles recently just about the demonization of the Serbs. The Serbs are our enemies, and they did some horrible things. But they're human beings that can become Muslim. What the Jahili Arabs, Hind ate the bit into the liver of Hamza. I mean, it doesn't get much more barbaric than that. She became a Muslim. Wahshi, who killed him, became a Muslim. So people can make tawbah, and they can become Muslim. And those people that did all those things, it'd be interesting to see what they're like now, how they're sleeping at night, because people do things in war, and they pay for it for the rest of their lives. And more more veterans of the Vietnam War have committed suicide than died in Vietnam in this country. Right? A lot of people don't know that. So they paid their price, and the people at the Gulf War who saw that carnage, they'll pay their price. They're human beings. They have hearts, I mean, you all of you have worked with non-Muslims. They cry. They have tears. Allah said, in يمسسكم قرح فقد مس القوم قرح مثله. If you're afflicted with something, they get afflicted with it too, right? So we all bleed red. Uh-huh. Well, I mean, the Prophet ﷺ, there's du'as in the Quran against the zalimeen. So anybody who oppresses, which is why the Prophet ﷺ said, رُبَّ قَارِئًا لِلْقُرْآنِ وَالْقُرْآنِ يَلْعَنُهُ. Maybe a man's reading the Quran and the Quran's cursing him. Right? Because Allah says, إِنَّ لَعْنَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَى الْكَاذِبِينَ. Isn't it that the la'na of Allah is on those who lie? If you're reading the Quran and you're a liar, you're reading a curse on you. Interestingly enough, that's all of the diseases. Just this last thing here, he says to treat it with the same treatment that you do with kibr, which we already went through, and then also knowing that with the knowledge that that one's purpose in doing it is to humiliate somebody else. That's the reason you make istihza with another person, is to humiliate them. Yet, by doing that, a person is humiliating himself with Allah and is recompensed with ignorance. Allah says, لا تنابزوا بالألقاب. don't throw names at one another. Don't make fun of each other. And so that's, and then that you'll be recompensed with evil. Now the next and final section on this one is he goes into a comprehensive treatment plan for the diseases of the heart, right? Actions that purify the heart, the root cause of the heart's diseases, the source of good and bad character, and then treatment with dhikr of Allah. So inshallah, that'll be the last sections. And then, like I said, basically, that we've covered that whole section. Oh, there's one more thing before we end the class. I'm glad I remembered this. Does anybody know the 7 deadly sins? Any ex-good Catholics in here? Okay. Pride. There's an order. Are you going in order? No, pride is not. Pride is arrogance. Yeah. Anger. That's not the 3. I know, but it's not 3. Envy. It's not, gluttony is not. Sloth. Good. Greed. Gluttony. And lust. Now, of all these diseases, which ones did he cover? He covered pride, he covered anger, envy, kasal, laziness, greed. Now, did he cover those 2? He did? Yeah, he deals with the cause, but he doesn't deal with it as a disease, right? He talks about a cause, but he doesn't talk about the disease of shahwa in there, right? Now, why do you think those 2 weren't dealt with?
Because shahwa is also good.
That's a good point. These both are fitra inclinations. And this is why even in the Catholic tradition, they were the last ones. These were considered worse than these 2. Right? Now, Imam al-Ghazali deals with these 2 in an entire book that's been translated, and I would really recommend the book because it will augment this course that we did called Breaking the 2 Desires. And it's actually 2 books. And one of the books is translated by Abdul Hakim Winter, T.J. Winter. It's a brilliant translation with a lot of really good notes also. But he deals with these 2 separately, and he calls it kasr al-shahwatain, breaking the 2 desires of gluttony and lust. Breaking the 2 desires of gluttony and lust. Gluttony is fuel for lust. In other words, gluttony, lust generally will follow gluttony. Not necessarily so causally, but generally. Even people that do a lot of fasting and so can still have trouble with that. But generally, you can break it that way. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ mentioned for the young people who weren't able to, they couldn't afford to get married, he said, فَعَلَيْكُمْ بِالصِّيَامِ, then you should fast. فَإِنَّ لَكُمْ وِجَاء, because it'll act like the wija was a little bag that they put on the goat so that it wouldn't impregnate other goats. You know, it's like it'll act as it'll kind of repress that desire. So gluttony and lust are two problems, right? But they're fitra problems, right? Hunger and the desire for food is part of human nature. And what one has to do is learn to control it. And then lust is also, it's part of human nature. It's a natural inclination of human beings. And the way to work with these two is balance, not to eliminate them. You don't want to eliminate shahwa and you don't want to eliminate shahiyya. They're from the same root. Desire for food, desire for sex, they're not meant to be eliminated. They're meant to be controlled, that's all. And the book is worth reading, but I just wanted to mention that, about that. Because if you look at out of those 7, the first 5 he deals with, and they're really important, but those 2, he doesn't really go into any detail. He does mention shahwa in relation to causes and things like that.